All right, let's dive right in. Today, we are tackling one of life's absolute biggest questions, one that really hits everything: our careers, our relationships, our happiness. And the question is this: how do we figure out what we truly want?
No, seriously, what do you really want? It sounds so simple, right? But if you actually stop for a second and try to answer it honestly, you'll probably find it's one of the hardest questions in the world. I mean, where do our desires even come from in the first place?
To get to the bottom of this, let me introduce you to someone. This is Claire. She's brilliant, she's ambitious, and she is on the perfect track for a super prestigious career in law. But there's a huge problem. Her days are spent defending big pharmaceutical companies. But her nights? Her nights are spent dreaming about food, about cooking, about restaurants. She's like a female Anthony Bourdain trapped inside a paralegal's life, and it is making her absolutely miserable. She's completely caught in this battle between what she thinks she should want and this other passion that feels so much more real. Now, Claire's dilemma is something I bet a lot of us can relate to. And to really understand it, we've got to look at this powerful theory that basically flips our whole understanding of desire completely on its head. This is the key that unlocks the whole puzzle. This incredible idea comes from a brilliant French social theorist named Girard. And what he argued was that desire isn't some pure, authentic thing that just bubbles up from our soul. Nope. He said that fundamentally, we're kind of clueless about what to want. So what do? We look around at other people and we copy. Girard gave this a name, mimetic desire, from the Greek word for imitation, to mimic. The theory is shockingly simple. Most of what we want because other people want it. See, desire isn't a straight line between you and a thing you want. It's actually a triangle. There's you, there's another person, who Girard calls a model, and then there's the object that they're wanting suddenly made you want too. The author of our source material, Luke Burgess, he shares this perfect example. He all of a sudden found himself really wanting a Tesla. Why? I mean, sure, it's a fast car, but when he really dug into it, he realized that desire only sparked after he started following this guy on Twitter who was constantly posting about his own Tesla. That guy was his model. Just think about it for a second. When was the last time you wanted something right after you saw a friend get it? Yeah, it happens all the time. Okay, now here is where it gets really interesting and honestly a little bit dangerous. This simple act of copying desire creates all these complex social dynamics, everything from intense rivalries to entire systems that trap us without us even knowing it. So this brings us to the two different kinds of models. On one hand, you have external models. These are people outside of our immediate world, celebrities, historical figures, maybe even a character from a book. We can aspire to be like them, but we can't really compete with them. But then you have internal models. These are the people right next to us, our friends, our colleagues, our siblings. And because we're so close, our desires get all tangled up, and that often leads directly to conflict and rivalry. Think about it this way, and be honest. Who are you more jealous of? Jeff Bezos and his billions? Or that coworker who just got a $5,000 raise that you didn't? For almost everyone, it's the colleague. That stings. Why? Because they are an internal model. They're in your world. They're close enough to be a rival, and their success feels like a direct comment on your own. That feeling, that jealousy, that is the engine of mimetic rivalry. And it's not just individuals. We also get trapped in what the source calls systems of desire. Take the incredible story of Chef Sebastian Bras. For 18 years, his restaurant held 3 Michelin stars. That's the highest honor in the food world. But he realized the crushing pressure to keep those stars had totally killed his creativity. He wasn't cooking for joy anymore. He was cooking for the Michelin inspectors. He was a slave to their system of desire. So in this totally unprecedented move, he asked to have his stars taken away just to reclaim his passion and his freedom. And that brings us right back to Claire. She was trapped in her own Michelin system, where the stars were getting into a top law school and landing a job at a prestigious firm. We all have these systems. So, what's yours? Is it the promotion ladder at work? Is it your family's expectations? The unspoken rules of your friend group? Okay, so we've diagnosed the problem. We are all swimming in a sea of mimetic desire. But here's the good news. We are not helpless. The source material gives us what it calls an anti-mimetic toolkit to start taking back control.
The source lays out this really clear 4-step process. First, you have to identify the people who are influencing you. Who do you find yourself constantly measuring up against? Second, categorize them. Are they close-by rivals or distant inspirations? Third, map out the systems, the Michelin guides that are dictating what success looks like in your world. And finally, the most important step of all, consciously choose which desires are actually worth your time and your energy. Now, it's really important to understand that not all mimetic desire is bad. It's better to think of it on a spectrum. On one end, you have what the author calls thin desires. These are fleeting, shallow wants that we just copy from the crowd, like buying a stock just because you have FOMO. But on the other end, you have thick desires. These are the deeply rooted, long-lasting callings that feel like they're a part of who you are, even if they were first sparked by a model.
And this reveals something absolutely incredible. You can take a mimetic desire and you can become its author. The classic example is Ferruccio Lamborghini. He only started making sports cars because of a personal rivalry with Enzo Ferrari, who had insulted him. It started as pure mimetic rivalry. But Lamborghini didn't just copy Ferrari. He put his own spin on it, his own passion, and he created something totally new. He made the desire his own.
This brings us to the ultimate goal here, living what the source calls an anti-mimetic life. And that doesn't mean having no models at all. It means consciously choosing your models and your desires, freeing yourself from that herd mentality and the default path that everyone else is on.
So what happened to Claire? Well, she identified her law school Michelin system. She realized her desire for a career in food was a deep, thick desire, and she made a huge change. She quit her job, went to grad school for food studies, and is now a super successful executive at a food startup. And then, in this beautiful final reveal, the author of the source material tells us that Claire is his wife. Their paths never would have crossed if they'd both stayed on their separate mimetic tracks.
So how can we actually apply this stuff in our own lives? Well, it really comes down to a few key areas. In your relationships, try to break that cycle of rivalry with generosity. On social media, intentionally curate your feed. Follow people who model positive desires, not things that just make you anxious. In your career, focus on your deep, thick motivations, not just the next job title on the ladder. And with your stuff, always remember, love people and use things, not the other way around. Ultimately, understanding mimetic theory, it gives you a whole new lens to see yourself and the world around you. It reminds you that your wants don't just pop out of nowhere. They have a history, a lineage, and they've been shaped by other people. So the final question this leaves us with is a really powerful one. Now that you know this, are you ready to stop being a character in someone else's story and start becoming the author of your own?